these were what a lot of the riots were based on was the blacks and the Hispanics, back in the day. But because of the times have changed, and laws have changed, and it's provided for people to have the opportunity to go home, there's some programming that's still being hindered, like at High Desert, because of the choice of people that they have there. You know what I'm saying? Who, I can't. And I don't want you to quote me for speaking towards certain people, but it's all of us as a whole who are not mindful enough and being men enough to identify, where somebody is causing detriment to the rest of the general population and is having an effect on everybody, and, that person or those entities are not being dealt with. So, with that being said, the prison politics are, it's an ugly sight, because it's like you got inmates deciding each other's fate, and that's a sad affair. It's a sad affair because they're no different than the next person. There's so many people who are actually the same, and they walk the same walk. They have some of the same diseases. They have some of the same behavior patterns. They have some of the same influences. They have some of the same characteristics that all the inmates who follow these instructions have, but they place themselves on a higher totem pole. They place themselves up above the inmates. So those are the politics of prison that, and it's deeper. It goes deeper. But as I said, though, there's a lot that goes with High Desert, and the staff knows exactly what it is. Just like you looked up the investigative probe of 2015. There were inmates back in this short-term restrictive housing unit, which is the SHU in Ad Say. Inmates were killing themselves. Inmates were hanging themselves due to the pressures. You had staff running in. They weren't complying with protocol because anytime you go into the cell to extract the inmate, you're supposed to have a high-ranking official there, a recorder, somebody to record these matters. But what the staff will do is pile up in there and go in the cell. Some of the biggest officers, of the prison. So they'll put like almost 1,000 pounds worth of staffs on top of a 150-pound, 60-pound individual, and while they're beating the hell out of him, they be hollering, "Stop resisting! Stop resisting!"
Oh, wow.
But they're beating him. They're beating him unconscious. And some of the officers, they're really vicious. They become vicious. They put handcuffs on their knuckles and use the knuckles, the handcuffs like brass knuckles, and be whooping on inmates and stuff. Then when they drag the inmate out, the inmate is just, limp, and then they got these medical staffs, who turn a blind eye. They do the standard report, no serious injuries, but the inmate, is busted up and broken up until his situation is so bad that the next shift of nurses or doctors say, "No, we're sending this guy to an outside hospital. He's messed up."
Yeah.
Then another report has to be written, So it's always a lot of covering up.
Yeah.
And the prison officials at High Desert has found a way to get around the cameras. They use areas where cameras are not. And they also, for some reason or how they do it, it just seems that they're able to hide certain things.
Yeah.
So that, because I had my situation up at High Desert, and I know that, that the staff facilitated it all, and they were all white officers, and, they weaponized the inmate, to confront me about a racial issue. They fed him, they fueled him with a racial, well, actually, they fueled it with information that had racial connotations to it that had nothing to do with this individual because he was not black. Mm-hmm. But they have black reps who address issues pertaining to blacks. So these white officers armed a non-black race inmate and sent him to confront me, and then one thing turned into another because doors went to opening up, and this individual came into the buildings and he was allowed to get his bodyguards out and stuff, and it was just a real ugly scene because it was all staged, and then doors started opening and it led.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It led to a physical confrontation because some people just really don't use their diplomacy skills in accordance to the influence that they have. Mm-hmm. And when addressing certain issues, certain people crossed the line and made physical contact with me. Initially, made physical contact with me, and it ignited into a so-called melee, which is a small riot. Now, because of the staff, their actions, they turned around and wrote the write-up as if the first punch that I threw was the start of what happened, whereas that's not the case because when the first contact was made, that was the violation itself. It triggered everything else, but it seemed like the cops pressed their reporting to reflect that I was the problem. I was let out of my cell. Somebody came to my cell, and while I was in my cell, and confronted me on some racial stuff pertaining to the black inmate population. And this inmate openly told the blacks when I was locked up in the hole, they asked him, what possessed you to go address issues pertaining to Crips, blacks, and you're not black, you're Hispanic.
Right.
He openly admitted that the white sergeant told him some BS, but they're not going to take my side because they're still up there functioning. Mm-hmm. And it's like I had to fight this matter without saying anything to be labeled as a snitch. I couldn't repeat the things that this person said to me in my note.
Right.
So all I could do is rely on these cameras because the cameras were activated and the cameras covered everything. So everything that was said and done, I asked for these people to preserve the footage of these cameras so that we could trace back and look at everything that happened and see where the false information was disseminated from and how it was, weaponized and how it ignited. But prison officials, again, they said these videos didn't exist. They didn't exist, so I couldn't use them as evidence. So they went ahead and found me guilty. But once they acquired their guilty finding, 8 months later, in their appeals and grievances, they're saying that the video did exist, but it was grainy and unintelligible.
Really? Oh, wow.
It was not legible. We couldn't figure out what was what on it, but these are crystal clear videos. They're very, very concise, and they got good hearing and good pictures. But still, the administration and CDCR continues to go along with these wrongs of other people because they're utilizing inmates to keep the other inmates. It's almost like a bull keeping the rest of the cows in place. Keep them herded and corralled, and this is how they use it. They use the influential one to keep everybody in check. While all these illegalities go on, and people's rights and entitlements and privileges are being diminished at an all-time high, and people are feeling hopeless in high-desert state prison because they want so bad to get away from there and to be in proximity to family members so that they can really, really be a part of programming that's going to help them get home. The only thing high desert is going to provide for you is death or death row or Pelican Bay, you know, and that's a shame because those three options right there.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Yeah, that's a bad situation all the way around.
Yeah, and it really needs to be closed because people, you know, it's absolutely in no man's land, and it's out of touch with the realities of life, period. And people need to know about high desert. And I hope I shed enough light on this matter.
All right. We have gotten a lot of insight about High Desert State Prison, and I'm interacting with some inmates that are there, and it's ridiculous, I must say, you know. And this is I don't have an inside view like Clarence and the inmates that are there, but what I'm getting from them is like it's ridiculous. You know, it's one of the worst prisons that exists in California. And so those of you that have loved ones and that are in High Desert, you know, if you can start making complaints, call ombudsman, whatever your loved ones are telling you, take it seriously, because just not too long ago, there was a suicide, and they were saying when they brought the guy out, his feet were tied. And I just like, what does that mean? His feet was tied. Do people tie their feet up before they commit suicide? So it's a lot of crazy stuff going on there. And if we don't speak up, nobody will. All right, we will talk to you later. We will see you next time. Have a blessed day.
Okay, thank you, Deborah.
All right,
okay.
We're back, and Clarence, we're getting ready to close this segment, and we're just going to give Clarence the opportunity to have some closing words. There you go.
Okay, thank you very much, Deborah. A lot of what I say, I try to approach with caution, and I'm trying to be mindful of everything that I'm saying, to not cross certain lines and to not compromise myself in no shape, form, or fashion. I've never done that, and I never will. People have a tendency to interpret things the way they choose to interpret. That's what these conversations are for. You can take it how you want to take it, but the truth is the truth, and the things that I put out there, I can support pretty much every single thing that I tell you, aside from some of the things that I speak about in terms of these corporations and the billion-dollar industry. They're factual on the face, but I don't have no paperwork or anything to back that. But anything that I do speak on, for the most part, pertaining to how police corruption is in High Desert State Prison, I can evidence that with paperwork. But my thing is to not perpetuate it and not promote it. But what I'm trying to do is give insight to people and family members and agencies who support and advocate for prisoners' rights to be mindful and be aware of what's going on that they may not be apprised of, and to give a bird's eye view of exactly what goes on the inside of prison. So I appreciate everybody, and I will continue to speak from my heart with my truth. And this is also just based on having a learning experience and knowing where to go from here. Thank you, and I appreciate you all.